The San Francisco 49ers have paid Brock Purdy, George Kittle, and Fred Warner this offseason. They had a very, very impactful draft, and it is now time to ask the question, reevaluate, reanalyze. Is the San Francisco 49ers chance at a Super Bowl still open and still available, or is it closed like some media pundits have said over the recent weeks? These are the topics we are going to dive into. Obviously, more conversations about the contract extensions and the future of the San Francisco 49ers with Brock Purdy at the helm. I'm also curious to know what your guys' thoughts are on the deal now that the details have been revealed. We're going to talk about all that good stuff, but you guys already know what to do. Drop an SDS in the chat, smash that like button. Let's get into it all right now. Smash that like button if you haven't already. Love to see it. What is going down, everybody? Good to see y'all rocking back in the building. I'm curious. Before we get into kind of the Super Bowl conversation, I can already see people saying it's open. I see some people saying it's shut. I kind of want to talk about how you guys perceive Brock Purdy's deal, because I've actually seen some obviously different thoughts and opinions on his deal. When I've hopped into the deal and I've looked at it, to me and from my perception, I feel like it's a win-win for everyone. I do think that there are different ways you can perceive his deal, depending on what you would consider a win or what you wouldn't. But I really do think that when you look at the kind of details and you look at how everything played out, I think there are great opportunities for everyone involved, including the fan base. When I look at Brock's deal, and you can see how they structured it, you can see the impact that it's gonna have next year and then the following years, and you start to see the cap hits and how they're kind of situated. I, to me, I look at over the next 3 years, the San Francisco 49ers are going to have a lot of opportunities to be able to continue to build this roster competitively. Now, obviously, when I say that, I don't know if there's a notion where people believe that the 49ers have to go out and spend big money in free agency. What I would consider having to keep the window open for success is drafting good players and paying those players. To me, that is the recipe for success. And the San Francisco 49ers, over the last couple of years, not including last year, but they have really struggled drafting. It has not been their strong suit since about the 2021 season. And here you are, you have Brock Purdy who gets paid and effectively keeps the window open, in my opinion, where I think there are people who are saying that the window is closed because they've had to pay. And that's where I don't really agree, because not only are these cap numbers through 2025, 2026, and 2027 extremely manageable, but each and every one of those years, the cap is going to continue to rise. Right now, the NFL is king, and boy, oh boy, they are striking new streaming deals, new sponsorships. I mean, the Jed York just sold about 6.2% of the franchise for millions and millions of dollars, with a record valuation at $8.5 billion. Like, the money, I don't think is necessarily the problem. I think what the the bigger concerns are is how you maneuver and retain talent, keep your guys, reward your guys while continuing to add and stack. And when I look at the cap hits just from the next 3 years out, I think that the 49ers are an extremely good spot with this deal from Brock. I've seen some people say that Brock lost this deal. And I think that also depends on what your perception is. If you believe Brock lost this deal, let me know what you think in the chat. Or if you think he won uh, this deal, let me know as well. Or if you find it somewhere in the middle. I find it a situation where both sides kind of came out on top and got what they're looking for. Like, let's not pretend like Brock isn't Mr. Irrelevant. He was the last draft pick um in the entire NFL, 262. We all know, right? And I think of it like this. Brock Purdy is getting $100 million guaranteed with the ability to earn up to $181 million guaranteed. I don't perceive that as a loss. So some fans are like, "Oh no, Purdy, he caved. He." I'm looking at it. I'm like, uh, uh, I'm maybe it's because I'm just a normal person who isn't making millions of dollars via the NFL, but when I look at it in comparison to other deals and the cash flow and the way it's working, I don't think it's that crazy. Like, I think I've heard some people discuss it as if he was just took it in the shorts, and I'm just like, I don't necessarily agree with that. Now, this isn't a Dak Prescott deal at all, not even close to that. And when you look at what Josh Allen got, he received 220 million guaranteed cash flow over the course of his deal. So he didn't get a Josh Allen deal. But I think in the same breath, I think everyone, would say that, well, he's not those guys. He's not Josh Allen. Dak Prescott just had all the leverage in the world, and he absolutely what I think the biggest thing that is bearing out is that Dak Prescott absolutely took the Cowboys to the cleaners, and they signed him to an awful deal. I think that's really what's becoming clear. And I think the NFL is kind of telling us that, that Deshaun Watson contract, the Dak Prescott contract, that's not the norm. And we're not going to really necessarily play by those rules. And so to compare Brock's contract to like, to me, Dak's contract has become the outlier. It has become just like, that's Jerry Jones doing what he does, whatever. We're not making that the norm, at least for right now. Um, and so the way that I look at it is Brock got rewarded. He got guaranteed money. He got injury guarantees. He got no trade clauses. He's got legitimate security through the first 3 years of this deal. And I think that's a great thing. 3 years of this, 4 years of this deal, 3 years of this deal, 3 to 4 years of this deal. He's got himself pretty substantially locked up. And beyond that, then that's where the 49ers kind of win a little bit, because they have the opportunity to reassess, reevaluate. Do we get out of this contract? Do we re-extend? Do we extend him to be able to push the cap space out? And I think this is where it's also a win-win for both sides, is that both sides will have the ability to reevaluate the deal in just a couple years from now. While Brock is still in the prime of his career, and he could re-sign. I think some people are looking at that as like, oh, see, Brock took it, you know, he didn't get there are outs in the deal, this, that, and the other thing. It's only like a 3-year deal, 2-year. I look at it like Brock has another opportunity to not only have the security and the injury guarantees and faith, knowing that he is going to be the 49ers quarterback locked in for the next few years, but he will also have an opportunity to renegotiate once the market goes up. Because think about it. Think about when Brock will be renegotiating. CJ Stroud will be getting paid. Jaden Daniels will be up. You'll have this next crop of like Bo Nix and Penix and JJ McCarthy, like all those guys are going to start getting paid. They're going to reset the market. And if Brock Purdy continues to have success for these multiple years, he's going to be able to then renegotiate and get a even more lucrative contract. So I don't look at that as a negative. I look at that as there are options here. There are options for all sides. And I think it's good, man. I think that Brock got a solid deal. I really do. I think that the 49ers got a solid deal. And because both of them got a solid deal, 49er fans got a solid deal. Because now what I see is I see the structure for the 49ers to go out, continue to add where they need, continue to re-sign homegrown talent, and do what they should continue to do, which is to pour their resources and assets into drafting the next crop of star football players. Yes, being able to add a couple via free agency is good as well. But the core of this team, just like we've seen with Brock Purdy, George Kittle, and Fred Warner getting paid, it's homegrown talent. It's the guys who have been here that have definitely gotten rewarded for what they've been able to do on the field. So I look at Brock's contract as a win from multiple different perspectives. Win for Brock, win for the team, win for the fans. And honestly, that's rare. That really does feel rare. And I'm sure there's a world that exists where Brock and his agent could have dug their heels in, the 49ers doing the same, holdouts, etc., all these different things that could potentially happen, and they chose not to go that route. And as a result of that, there's flexibility on both sides, and I don't think that's a bad thing, especially with how many people are complaining about kind of the quarterback market as it currently stands. This kind of feels like a deviation from that. This kind of feels like a bit of a breath of fresh air for both sides. So I don't know. That's the way I perceive it. And I think that then leads us into the conversation about, is the 49ers window still open for the Super Bowl? And the only reason why I'm asking or posing this question is because I do feel that there are a lot of people who are down on the San Francisco 49ers right now and down on their potential ability to be competitive. And I do know and I do believe that there has been a lot of roster turnover. And I do understand that there are going to be a lot of different pieces contributing to the 49ers' potential success in 2025. However, I really don't look at this situation like a lot of outsiders do. And maybe that's because I am super close to the situation. And really when you look at it, they're in a much better place than they were just 1 year ago. You look at the tone around the team, we're celebrating contracts. We're celebrating Brock getting paid, Fred getting paid, and George Kittle getting paid all before mandatory minicamp has rolled around. And that is like we had uh quiet holdouts at OTAs last year. Remember? Like, oh, Christian McCaffrey's not at OTAs. That's interesting. CMC's always at OTAs. Why isn't he here? Oh, Jawan Jennings isn't practicing during OTAs. That's weird. Yeah, oh, where's Trent Williams? Obviously, we knew what was going on with Brandon Ayuk. It's a complete opposite. Now, both CMC and Jawan ended up getting paid before mandatory minicamp, but it was like, oh, there was something going on there. So, and I think most of the players have talked about it. I think George talked about it. I think Brock talked about it, of getting ahead of these contracts, not allowing them to linger, and how it changes the overall mood within the building. And I think that was one of my biggest takeaways from Brock's press conference, was him talking about how the energy inside the building is like night and day different than what it was from last year. And so that's where I start when it comes to discerning, is the 49ers window open or is the 49ers Super Bowl window closed? And that's where I start. I'm like, I just look at I think that the offseason, I'm a firm believer that what happens in the offseason translates into the season. Why do you think players work so hard in the offseason? Why do you think they put in so much time and effort? Because that rolls into the upcoming year. And so when you're seeing how last year rolled in to the season, this year much different energy, much different vibes. And I think that that's where the foundation of the season is built. And so right now, the foundation feels clean. The foundation feels solid. The 49ers go out, they sign Robert Saleh. They go out and they sign Brant Boyer. Kind of two struggling phases of the team. And probably due to the fact that, Kyle Shanahan was wearing a little thin. He's having to do a little too much, having to do a little too much on the defensive side, having to pay attention too much to the special teams. Now you can kind of divvy up and delegate, as Kyle should, but in trusted sources, right? Guys who can do it, guys who he does believe will get it done. And that, I think, speaks volumes to the season that we're heading into. Lisa says it was closing for a week during the off season. Then we kicked that door wide effing open. New stars incoming, bang, bang, Niner gang. I like what Lisa's saying. I think there was a moment this offseason where I think you could genuinely question what the 49ers season was going to look like this upcoming year. Like, just are we really trending in the wrong direction? When you see the situation play out with Dre Greenlaw, obviously a lot of players left in free agency. And I think that kind of caused fans to kind of look around and, kind of ask themselves, are we going in the wrong direction? And, finally being in this phase where pretty much everything's taken care of. You've gotten through the coaching hires, free agency is done, the draft is done, and now you see the roster and you see where the holes are, where the strengths are. I have a hard time looking at the full build and just being like, they're not going to be able to compete. I fully believe that when you look at this kind of retooled roster, I think that the 49ers are going to be in great shape. And obviously, I say this every year. There's two main factors that are in the way of the San Francisco 49ers getting back to the playoffs. It's injuries and themselves. They can stay healthy, stay available, and execute and play their game and get out of their own way. The 49ers are going to be difficult to stop because the big health question obviously correlates to Christian McCaffrey's availability. We did not have a healthy Christian McCaffrey last year. We had a healthy Christian for like 2.5 quarters of that Buffalo Bills game, and then he got hurt again. And you could just see the difference in energy that offense had with a healthy Christian McCaffrey. So if Christian McCaffrey is playing all 17 games healthy, 49ers are in the playoffs. I think that is the biggest determining factor of the 49ers success is Christian McCaffrey's health, because he makes things so much easier for everyone. The O-line, Brock Purdy, the receivers, Kittle, and most importantly, Kyle Shanahan. So you get Christian McCaffrey healthy. You have Isaac Guerendo heading into year 2. Isaac Guerendo could be a legitimate piece of the 49ers offensive puzzle. The way that he can execute outside zone, the way he was able to improve as the season progressed, he still has an ability to continue to move forward. And then the 49ers go out and get Jordan James, which in my opinion is a twitchier Jordan Mason. So I like where the running back room is. You bring in Corey Kiner as a UDFA. You got Patrick Taylor, who I really like as a special teams contributor, and even a guy who can play significant snaps if needed. But based on the depth chart, he might not see all that much. And then, of course, the 49ers bring back Kyle Juszczyk. You look at that room, the running backs, I feel extremely good about that, barring health. And then we really don't know what Brandon Ayuk's status is. Let's just remove Brandon Ayuk for a second because we'll get to BA. You have Juwan Jennings, who absolutely ascended last year. Ricky Pearsall. Ricky Pearsall in that game against the Detroit Lions at the end of the year, phenomenal. What did he have? Like 14 catches. Him and Brock were playing on another level. And we already know that those guys are working out and, putting in work this offseason. That combination is going to improve. Ricky Pearsall, to me, could absolutely be a 1,000-yard receiver this year. You add Demarcus Robinson, who I think is a super underrated veteran wide receiver. He can definitely fill a role. The 49ers go out and draft Jordan Watkins, who looks like an extremely fluid athlete out of Ole Miss. And then a lot of people have forgotten about Jacob Cowing. And I just don't think Jacob Cowing is a guy that you want to sleep on. I talked to his teammate at the NFL draft this year. I talked to Tet McMillan, and I asked him, I said, tell me something about Jacob Cowing. That he lit up like a Christmas tree and just talked about how Jacob Cowing taught him so much about playing the game of football. Said he was the best receiver he's ever played with. Tet loved Jacob Cowing. I think Jacob Cowing is being slept on, and he's an explosive wide receiver. He is an explosive playmaker that just didn't get a lot of opportunities last year. So you've got all these guys. And then, of course, Tariq Owens could take a step forward. You've got Isaiah Nayer, who looks promising. Big frame. They draft Junior Bergen in the 7th. You got Isaiah Hodgins, a guy that I don't think you could sleep on either. Russell Gage, Trent Taylor. And remember, we shelved talking about Brandon Ayuk at the very beginning. Now assume Brandon Ayuk is healthy. Now assume Brandon Ayuk has some good energy, some good vibes, and he's back. He's ready to go. What if Brandon Ayuk is ready to go for training camp? If that is the case, the 49ers are looking pretty solid on offense. George Kittle, Luke Farrell, um, Jake Tonges, Braden Willis. They brought back Ross Dwelly and Mason Pline. Outside of George Kittle, they don't have a ton of pass catching weapons at tight end, but Luke Farrell brings in a blocker. And then where I think the 49er fans have the biggest questions are obviously offensive line. Trent Williams assumed to be back. I've said this a million times. I think Colton McKivitz takes a step forward next year. Dominic Pooney takes a step forward next year. And the 49ers just really need to figure out what the left guard and the center situation is going to look like. And who knows, maybe Jake Brendel was dealing with injuries last year and that impacted his play. But I do expect Ben Barch to snag one of these jobs, but you also got Matt Hennessy, Drake Nugent, who could potentially compete. Austin Pleasance actually was a pleasant surprise in some of the games that he played in last year, just picked off the streets and thrown into the fire. You have Spencer Burford, obviously. Maybe he makes a resurgence. Nick Zakel, the 49ers draft Connor Colby. So I don't know. I don't think I don't think I wouldn't say the 49ers offensive line is ideally built. I wouldn't say that. I would say, though, they could level it out. I think more than most 49er fans believe. I think they could find the right pieces. It just might take some times. Take some time. Um, also, so and I think that's going to be a huge element is the offense. It's one of the reasons why I do believe that the 49ers ability to, and I guess this is how I would define, is your Super Bowl window open? I do believe, and I definitely understand what R's coming from. He says, Brad, what defines a Super Bowl window? Great question. As being open or closed. I'm just a fan, and these catchphrases which actually take away from the game. I think it's a great point because I'm almost right there with you. To me, a window implies that you can be competitive enough to compete for a playoff spot. That's to me what defines a window being open or closed. Can you or can you not make the playoffs? Because I'm a firm believer once you get into the tournament, anything can happen. So as long as you get to the tournament, as long as you have the ability to make it to the dance, who's to say how far you can dance your way to the Super Bowl, right? I think of the Eli Manning teams. They were never like elite teams. They were never like just dominating. They just got into the playoffs and they got hot at the right time. That to me, that's the way that I look at it. So when I look at this team, at least from the offensive, like we just broke down the offense, I would say offensively, absolutely, barring health, this team absolutely can make the playoffs. And that's it. You look at the schedule, they have the weakest strength of schedule in the entire league. It's very favorable. And I think the stars are kind of aligning in regards to strength of schedule, the way the schedule is kind of spread out. And I think how people are kind of doubting this team as well. So this, I think, is a phenomenal point by Silent. Is Eagles and Lions are too far ahead in the trenches. The 49ers objectively are weak in the trenches right now because 3 of their projected 4 starters we have never seen play in the NFL. So when you look at Nick Bosa, that's a reigning defensive player of the year. He is a cornerstone defensive piece. That goes a long way. But when you look at CJ West, Alfred Collins, and Mykel Williams, yes, the pedigree would suggest that Mykel, Alfred, and CJ all make strong impacts on the 49ers defensive line as rookies, but they're still rookies. And so it's definitely going to be an interesting development because we can sit here on May 23rd and say, yes, Mykel Williams, Alfred Collins, CJ West gonna be ballers. Future whatever. But we just don't know. Like we just don't know. So we got to see how it plays out. And there's potential there. There's potential for them to be really good right out the gate. But there's still a wait and see period to that. So yeah, I agree. The trenches are a very fascinating element to this. But I've seen some wild things happen in the NFL. And again, if you guys have followed me for a long time, you know I will never say never. I've learned over and over and over again, talking about football as long as I have, that you cannot say never. Because the second you say, oh, that will never happen, it happens. So, hey, Batman says, if the Niners win the Super Bowl at home this year, I will name my future son Brad. I am holding you to that. I expect when the 49ers, we're doing our recap stream, I expect to check in. But, we talked a lot about the offense so far, and we started to get into the defense. The defense, I think, is probably the more concerning element of the roster build out, just because of what we've mentioned. 3 of the projected starting defensive tackles are going to be rookies, and that is just a question mark. You can project, you can say what you think they're going to be. We really don't know. We'll have a much better idea once they get into some preseason games. I liken it to Dominic Puni last year, right? If you guys followed my training camp coverage, you guys know I was all over Dominic Puni. You guys know I'm like, this guy is better than every interior offensive lineman currently on the field, including Brendel and including Aaron Banks. I was on that earlier. I kept saying, like, this Dominic Puni guy. That's why Dominic Puni I gave him my offensive rookie of training camp award. But that's how well he played. And then when you got to preseason, it just continued. And I think back to the Saints game where the Saints played their starting defensive line for a good portion of it, including Cam Jordan, including Brees. They have some high draft picks and some big time players on that defensive line. And Dominic Puni put the clamps on them. So that was when I was like, all right, we're good with Puni. Like, Puni is legit and we're going to be okay throughout the season. That process has to play out for these defensive linemen. That's how I will feel comfortable, is that we get into training camp, we see them hold up against the 49ers offensive line, and then how do we see them against other NFL talent? How do we see them in the preseason? Do they play against other opposing starting offensive lines? How do they do in that moment? And then we will have a really good ability to project out what we think these three defensive linemen, CJ West, Alfred Collins, and Michael Williams, will look like in the coming season. So we can project, we can say, and we can hope for what we want them to be this year. But we'll see. We'll see how it goes. We'll see what happens. Every time I come in here, I wonder what Brad's looking at. What do you think I'm looking at? I got a lot of stuff on my wall, and I've got 3 screens. Actually, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 screens in front of me. So it's perfect for my ADHD brain. I've got my iPad right here. I've got a massive, like, square screen, then my laptop, and then a more rectangular screen, and my cell phone propped up. I look at a lot of different things when I am streaming. And the camera's off to the side. It feels unnatural for me to do a stream and, like, this is why the San Francisco 49ers Super Bowl window is officially open. I don't know. It feels like here my eyes can wander. I can look at all the different things that I have going. I'm watching the chat, looking at the depth chart versus just like, sup, guys? How about them 49ers? I don't know. That's my vibe. That's how we do. He said, "I, Brad." He said, "Yeah, but you gotta look us in the face sometimes." All right, I'll look you in the face sometimes. Sometimes you'll get that eye contact. I don't know. Does that make a difference for you guys? Does it really legitimately make a difference if I'm like staring at my camera or if I'm like looking at my screen? That's a good question. Let me know in the chat. I'm actually curious about that. But I wasn't looking for squirrels, but that just took me on a giant squirrel adventure. Okay, I like this. For serious moments and emphasis. I like that. That makes sense. All right, both is good. I'll work on a little bit more eye contact for you guys. He says, I prefer the minimal eye contact, Brad, and I prefer it. That's hilarious. That's funny. All right, back on track. let's get the train back on the tracks. I would say if you had to tell me the phase of the 49ers football team that I'm most concerned for, be the defense. I'm concerned for the simple fact of unknowns. I'm just, I really like Nick Martin. Nick Martin is a really good linebacker in terms of just being a freak. He is so fast, and he is. You just forgot it. Hey, we're workshopping. We're workshopping here. Nick Martin. I almost said Nick Winters. Nick Martin, high upside, but just don't know. I just got to see, because same thing happened with D Winters. D Winters was a similar style prospect. I think I liked Nick Martin much more than I liked D Winters coming out. Um, I will say that. Uh, but again, you just never know. You never know what the acclimation process looks like, right? So it's going to be interesting. How many rookies are starting this season? I mean, I think they're all going to come on the defensive side of the football. CJ West, Alfred Collins, Michael Williams all seem like starters to me, unless they give. I would say the only way CJ West doesn't start is because Kevin Givens starts. And honestly, a healthy Kevin Givens, I'm okay with. I like Kevin Givens. Um, Yetur Gross Matos might get a start, but he would obviously be in heavily rotation with Michael. So I expect Collins and Michael to get starts. I don't know. I think one of the bigger training camp battles that we are going to have is between Upton Stout and Trey Brown. I want to see what that looks like when it's all said and done. Um, so Upton has a chance to start, but I think he'll have to beat out Trey Brown. And obviously, Nick Martin definitely has a chance to start this year. So I don't know. I'll probably say four linebackers start, but not four linebackers start, four rookies start. But I will say that there's probably going to be, let's see. I could see Jordan James getting some run, but not a ton. Marquis Siegel, probably special teams. Yeah, probably 3 to 5 rookie starters, and they actually all come on the defensive side of the ball. How do I feel about Iowa rookie Connor Colby starting? I don't. It wouldn't be my first choice. But if he gets into training camp and he starts, impressing, then obviously I'll have a different, opinion on it. But as it stands right now, I don't particularly see Connor Colby as a starter right now. But like I said, that could absolutely change when we get into training camp. So we'll see. So there's a lot of that. There's a lot of we'll see. I think the Malik Mustafa injury is a big blow. Obviously, that kind of was that was sprung on us right after the draft. I know no one was expecting that or anticipating that. So that definitely was a shock to the system for most fans. You know, whatever. They felt that was the right move to not tell anyone about his injury until after the draft. But then that puts a huge emphasis on Jair Brown heading into year 3. I think Jason Pinnock becomes a huge element. And Richie Grant becomes an interesting piece. I liked Richie Grant coming out of UCF. He was not good with the Atlanta Falcons, but I'm curious to see if he can kind of rejuvenate his career with the 49ers because he has phenomenal athletic tools. So I'm very curious about that. Very curious. So we shall see. But this is going to be a very entertaining training camp because training camp is going to tell us what this team is, Right now, a lot of hypotheticals, a lot of projections. Training camp will give us some actual answers. So I'm looking forward to that. How do I feel about safety? I don't feel great about safety. Um, I would feel better if they brought in someone like Justin Simmons. Again, with the Malik Mustafa injury, no clear guarantee when he will return. I would feel better. I would feel better with some veterans brought in the safety room and the defensive line room. I think the 49ers still need another pass rusher. So I'm curious if they are waiting. There's still a good number of free agent pass rushers out there. So it just kind of feels like I wonder if teams are going to kind of see what they have with OTAs and mandatory minicamp and kind of get a sense for what they have and then go out and sign some guys or sign some guys throughout that process. So I don't think that the 49ers are necessarily done when it comes to signing some players. I do think that there are some guys that are worthy of being signed. Um, and that the 49ers probably could uh, benefit by signing a player or two that is out there. So that's kind of where I would see it. I would think, or maybe just waiting for guys to get cut around training camp. So I don't think that the roster as we see it today will be obviously the 53-man roster. They're going to have to cut a lot of guys to get to that point, but I think there are going to be more additions to the defense as time goes on, and you know, we'll see. We'll see how it goes from there. But bringing it back to the original question, is the 49ers window open? I think it is. I think they have I don't think it's an easy, wide open guarantee the San Francisco 49ers are going to the Super Bowl, but I think they have a chance. I think the shot is available. And to me, that's all you need. So you're saying you just need a chance. You just need an opportunity. And because that opportunity, in my opinion, exists, I think they could. Now, it's not that there's definitely better teams right now in the NFL. I think I think Silent mentioned, the Lions and the um, Philadelphia Eagles from a trenches standpoint are night and day better than the 49ers currently. But again, all it takes is one team to get into the dance and get hot at the right time, and who knows what can happen. So this is exactly what same thought process right here, Sam, is get to win the division, scratch your way into the playoffs, and then let's go dancing. Then anything can happen. Who knows what kind of run a team like the 49ers could go on. I guarantee you no one had the 2019 San Francisco 49ers as Super Bowl favorites. You had Adam Rank thinking that the 2019 San Francisco 49ers were going 3-13. So I like that. I like that to be where the 49ers are perceived, because I think when the 49ers are perceived in that way, they tend to outperform pretty substantially. So I like that people are saying that the 49ers aren't going to compete or aren't going to push, or the Rams have passed them by, which may be true. The Rams are going to be good next year. But that doesn't mean the 49ers can't compete with them. So that's the way that I look at it. And as long as the 49ers can compete and get into the playoffs, anything can happen. Any chance they sign Asante Samuel Jr.? I saw he's dealing with some serious back issues. I think he had to have off-season surgery on his back. So that would kind of probably be a no if that's the case. But yeah, no, I think he is. They're saying he won't sign before July, because he's got to get through and prove that he's healthy. So I think he's dealing with a pretty serious injury. So I think that's why he's still unsigned. So CJ Mosley would be an interesting one to me. I mean, obviously the 49ers would have the best firsthand account of where CJ Mosley is at with Robert Saleh in the mix. So that's why I'm saying I think 49ers potentially get through OTAs, mandatory minicamp, and then they reevaluate. And they see who's available, bring some guys in. Like I said, I don't think the roster's final yet. And there's still some pretty solid players out there. So we'll see how it goes. But I do think the 49ers will be competitive this year for sure. So I'm hoping that people keep sleeping on the Niners and give the 49ers an opportunity to surprise, because we tend to have the most fun seasons when that is the case. But you guys have been great. Appreciate everyone for tapping in. I'm sure if you guys have been following the channel, you know I haven't been ultra consistent this month. I'm trying to, working through some things and hopefully be able to get back on that consistent beat here pretty soon. But again, I appreciate everyone who continues to support and continues to show love, and I really do appreciate it. So hopefully going to be getting back to normal here pretty soon, but appreciate everyone who continues to rock with the channel. And as always, appreciate y'all. Make sure you smash that like button, grab your cookies on the way out. Appreciate y'all. Hopefully you guys have a good Memorial Day weekend, right? And I'll see you guys on the other side. Peace. Smash that like button if you haven't already. Love to see you.